The galaxy had always been a place of peace and order. Each planet and species had their place, their role in the grand cosmic tapestry. The Exhilarating Empire, with its advanced technology and vast territory, was considered one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. The peaceful Arxilians, with their wisdom, had been mediators for centuries. The Valorans, cold and calculating, maintained a careful balance of power. Every species had their place, and Earth was barely a blip on the radar. But one day, something changed. A routine report came through the Universal Observatory. A new classification had been issued for Earth. The Exhilarating analysts had reevaluated the data, updated their systems, and concluded that Earth wasn't just another insignificant planet. It had been reclassified as a Class 13 Deathworld, the most dangerous classification of any planet. For the peaceful Galactic Council, it was a huge shock. They had all heard rumors of Earth's violent history, humanity's endless wars, the destruction they had caused to their own world. But those were just stories, right? Nothing more than a few pages in the galactic archives. Surely a species that had never made it past their own planet's atmosphere couldn't be a real threat, right? But the Council's reaction was swift. The transmission was sent to all corners of the galaxy. Earth's status had been officially updated. Now they were no longer seen as a harmless, primitive world. Earth had become something dangerous, and the galaxy was not prepared for it. For days, confusion and panic spread throughout the intergalactic community. The analysts at the Exhilarating Council scrambled to understand how humans, could be classified as a Class 13 Deathworld. The classification system was simple. Class 1 planets were peaceful, safe, and governed by established civilizations. Class 13 planets, on the other hand, were reserved for the most dangerous worlds. Planets whose ecosystems were so hostile, whose native species were so violent, that they were considered a threat to any other civilization. A Class 13 planet could not be left unchecked. If a Class 13 species ever left their planet and gained access to space, they could cause destruction on a galactic scale. The transmission from the Exhilarating Council was clear. This is no longer a simple observation. Earth must be observed closely. The first question that came to the minds of every leader in the galaxy was, why? Why Earth? What was it about this small blue planet that made it so dangerous? Dr. Ilara Kian, a prominent scientist from the peaceful Arxilian delegation, took it upon herself to investigate. She had always been intrigued by Earth's wild history. Humans, she knew, were capable of violence, of war. But she believed that they lacked the true power to harm the galaxy. Impossible, she muttered to herself as she examined the data. There's no way they could be that dangerous. But the data didn't lie. Earth had been rated a Class 13 based on its unpredictable ecosystem, its incredibly violent history, and most of all, the resilience of humanity itself. Earth was a planet where species fought against the very forces of nature, where ecosystems and wildlife were in a constant state of violent evolution. Humans, in particular, had survived wars, famines, and catastrophic events that would have wiped out any other species. The data showed Earth's history in chilling detail. At first, humanity had been divided by nations, constantly fighting among themselves. There had been wars that spanned centuries, technologies that led to mass destruction, and conflicts that seemed endless. But every time humanity's greatest civilizations collapsed, the humans rebuilt. They adapted, learned from their mistakes, and grew stronger. They survived the worst that nature and their own kind could throw at them. There was something about humanity's ability to endure that unnerved the galaxy. On Earth, the wars never stopped. They had endured countless global conflicts, many of them leaving the planet ravaged. Yet, every time, they fought back. Earth's history was filled with moments of great destruction, but there was also something else, a force that could never be extinguished. Humanity was resilient, unpredictable, and relentless. Dr. Kian continued her investigation. She reviewed reports about humanity's recent developments. The most troubling part was the speed with which humans adapted and overcame challenges. Their technology was primitive compared to the advanced civilizations of the galaxy, yet they were making rapid strides. They had mastered the art of war, and more disturbingly, they had already started reaching into space. Dr. Kian paused and stared at the screen, absorbing the implications. Earth was on the cusp of space travel, and with it came the ability to influence the galaxy. But it wasn't just that. The humans were learning fast. They had figured out how to push past their limitations. They had weapons of mass destruction, yes, but they also had something far more dangerous: ingenuity. And humans had learned, through centuries of violence, how to use that ingenuity to survive against all odds. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were now faced with a terrifying question. What if humanity didn't just survive? What if they learned how to thrive in the face of galactic opposition? There were whispers in the council chambers. The Valorans, always calculating, expressed concerns. The Arxilians, diplomatic and wise, urged caution. The Exhilarating, proud and strong, were already preparing their defenses. Earth had been reclassified as a threat, and the Council now had to decide what to do. But for Earth, none of this mattered. The planet's leaders had no idea what was coming. They had no idea that they had just been marked as a threat by the galaxy. The people of Earth continued their daily lives, unaware that their entire existence had just changed in the eyes of the universe. As Earth continued to develop, the question remained: would humanity rise to the challenge, or would the galaxy crush them before they had the chance? The news of Earth's new classification spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy, creating a storm of debates, meetings, and whispers in every corner of the intergalactic community. For days, the Galactic Council, consisting of leaders from the most powerful and peaceful species in the universe, struggled to come to terms with the discovery. Representatives from the peaceful Arxilian Empire were the first to speak up, voicing their concerns over the sudden shift in Earth's status. They had always considered Earth a minor, insignificant planet, barely worth a passing glance. But now, the galactic system had labeled it a Class 13 Deathworld, something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. No one could deny the data. Earth's violent history, unpredictable nature, and resilient species had placed it on the galactic radar in a way no one had anticipated. The Arxilians, who had always been a beacon of diplomacy and peace, were now forced to reconsider their approach toward this small, seemingly primitive planet. They argued that Earth's violent past was merely a phase, and that humans were not yet a threat to the galaxy, merely a species trying to survive. But the Xilorians, a fierce and technologically advanced empire, saw things differently. They were the first to call for immediate action. They pointed to Earth's tendency to rebuild, to adapt, and to rise from its own ashes after every global conflict. It was this uncanny ability to survive, even thrive, in the face of destruction that worried them most. The Xilorians had seen countless species in their time, but none like humans. Earth had witnessed wars that had nearly wiped out humanity, yet the species persisted, coming back stronger with each new conflict. The Xilorians could see the potential for Earth to grow into something far more dangerous, something that could one day challenge their own dominance. It wasn't just the wars that worried them, but the way humanity had mastered survival, even in the most hostile conditions. If humans ever left their planet and ventured into space, they could bring with them a new kind of power, one the galaxy was not prepared for. The Valorans, cold and calculating, observed the situation with keen interest. They had always been master strategists, priding themselves on their ability to predict the future. Their cold logic told them that Earth's reclassification was a sign that the galaxy was facing something far more significant than a simple primitive species. There was an intelligence behind humanity's actions, an intelligence that had allowed them to thrive in such an unpredictable and violent environment. The Valorans were not quick to make decisions, preferring to weigh every possible outcome, but they understood that Earth's newfound status had to be dealt with carefully. The question was not whether Earth posed a threat today, but whether it would in the future. If humans could survive wars, natural disasters, and internal collapse, what would they be capable of once they gained the tools to conquer space? Could they unite as a species, or would their divided nature make them even more dangerous? As the debates continued, Dr. Ilara Kian, a renowned scientist from the Arxilian delegation, delved deeper into the reports. She couldn't help but feel conflicted. Part of her wanted to believe that Earth was no different from the countless other planets that had faced internal strife and chaos. But the data was irrefutable. Earth's history was not like any other. The planet had been torn apart by war, poverty, and natural disasters, yet it had never fallen completely. Every time humanity seemed on the brink of extinction, they found a way to rebuild. The humans had developed weapons of mass destruction, yes, but their true power lay in their ability to adapt. Unlike other species, humans did not shy away from conflict. They faced it head-on, often emerging more united and stronger for it. Earth's ability to endure was something the galaxy had underestimated for far too long. Dr. Kian shared her findings with the Council, but her conclusions only fueled the growing sense of unease. Earth was unpredictable, yes, but it was more than that. It was a planet full of creatures who did not give up easily, who fought not only against each other, but against nature itself. The galaxy had assumed that Earth's primitive technology and lack of unity would keep it from ever becoming a real threat. But that assumption had been shattered. The human race had survived against all odds, and if they continued to evolve at this rate, they might one day become a force that could not be ignored. The Council struggled to decide what action, if any, should be taken. Some believed that Earth was still too primitive to be a threat, that its current state of development wasn't a concern. But others, particularly the Exhilarations, insisted that Earth should be watched closely. The risk of underestimating this planet was too great. With the potential for human space travel on the horizon, the galaxy could not afford to wait. A plan needed to be set in motion to observe, monitor, and, if necessary, intervene. As the Council deliberated, the question remained: how would Earth respond to its newfound status as a Class 13 Deathworld? Would humanity rise to the challenge, or would they remain unaware of the danger they were about to face? Would they see the galaxy as a threat, or would they continue to focus on their own survival? The Galactic Council continued to debate Earth's future. The question of how to handle the now classified Class 13 Deathworld weighed heavily on their minds. Some believed Earth posed no immediate threat, that it was merely a primitive planet with violent tendencies. Others, particularly the Exhilarations, saw something far more troubling, something they couldn't ignore. Earth, in its unpredictability, had shown an unparalleled ability to adapt and survive, and if humanity continued to evolve at its current rate, the entire galaxy could soon find itself under threat. The first step for the Council was to send a group of their most elite observers to Earth. These would be the galaxy's best diplomats, scientists, and strategists, equipped with the most advanced technology to gather information without alerting humanity. Their mission was clear: observe, analyze, and report back on Earth's potential to pose a threat to the galaxy. If humanity's progress in space travel had already begun, the Council needed to know just how fast they could adapt to new technologies. Dr. Ilara Kian, the brilliant Arxilian scientist, had been chosen to lead this team. Her extensive background in interspecies diplomacy and her scientific expertise made her the perfect candidate for the delicate task at hand. She was fascinated by humanity, but had always kept a safe distance, believing they were just another flawed species that would eventually fall into their own chaos. However, the new data had forced her to reconsider her stance. With a heavy heart, Dr. Kian led her team through the final stages of preparation. As they set their course for Earth, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about this mission would change everything. She had spent years studying alien species, understanding their behavior, their evolution, their history. But humanity was different. The more she learned, the more she realized that Earth's resilience wasn't just a characteristic of survival. It was something more powerful, more dangerous. Humanity's ability to persist, to rebuild, was something no other species had ever fully understood. There was no telling what they might do if they ever truly united. When the team finally arrived at Earth's orbit, they did so under the guise of a peaceful exploration mission. They had cloaked their ship to avoid detection by humanity's primitive technology, but the vast scope of their mission weighed on them. They weren't just observing the planet. They were studying a species that could, one day, alter the balance of power across the entire galaxy. The first thing they noticed upon arrival was the strange beauty of Earth. From space, it looked like a fragile blue marble, covered in swirling clouds and oceans. But the more they analyzed, the more unsettling details began to emerge. Earth's environment, while breathtaking, was inherently chaotic. The planet was in constant turmoil, with natural disasters and violent weather patterns appearing with little warning. It was a world where survival was a daily struggle, not just for the humans but for all life. The ecosystems were unpredictable, and the animals that inhabited Earth were incredibly dangerous, constantly evolving to survive in the harsh conditions. The next step for Dr. Kian's team was to examine Earth's history. They accessed the archives of the most powerful civilizations of the galaxy to see what they had on record about this strange world. The data they found painted a picture of a species defined by war, survival, and constant conflict. Earth's history was full of devastating wars, global conflicts that had nearly wiped out humanity multiple times. They fought each other, fought nature, and fought the consequences of their own actions. Every time they faced the brink of extinction, humanity came together to fight back and rebuild. What Dr. Kian found most unsettling was the speed at which humans had advanced. Despite their primitive technology, humans had already managed to reach a level of technological development that allowed them to explore the stars. While they were far from mastering space travel on the level of the galaxy's more advanced civilizations, their progress was undeniable. The fact that they had even begun exploring the possibility of space travel made them a threat that could not be ignored. The humans' resilience was becoming a major factor in the equation. If they could survive everything else, how long would it take before they figured out how to conquer space? Dr. Kian and her team also learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't just their technology. It was their ability to innovate under pressure. Every major disaster on Earth had led to new solutions, new ways of overcoming adversity. Even their wars, while horrific, had taught them valuable lessons in strategy, resourcefulness, and survival. As the team continued their research, it became more and more clear. Earth was no longer a minor player in the galaxy. Humanity was evolving faster than anyone had anticipated. The Council was beginning to realize that Earth's reclassification wasn't a mistake. If anything, it was a warning. While many believed Earth's violence was a sign of weakness, Dr. Kian saw it as something else, an indicator of strength. Humans had survived against overwhelming odds, and the galaxy had underestimated them for far too long. She began to wonder if they had missed something fundamental about humanity. Was Earth really just a dangerous, violent world, or was there something more profound behind the constant struggle? Could humans, once united, be a force that the galaxy had never seen before? As Dr. Kian and her team prepared to return to the Council with their findings, she knew one thing for certain: the galaxy's perception of Earth would never be the same. The intergalactic community had to decide whether to treat humanity as a threat to be controlled or a potential ally to be cultivated. But one thing was clear: Earth's rise was inevitable. How the galaxy responded to that rise would determine the future of the galaxy itself. The days that followed Dr. Kian's team's first report back to the Galactic Council were filled with tension and uncertainty. The Council had initially been divided in their views on Earth. Some saw humanity as nothing more than a primitive species, no different from the countless others who had emerged and disappeared in the galaxy's long history. But the data sent back by Dr. Kian and her team had begun to shift the narrative. Earth's reclassification as a Class 13 Deathworld was not simply an error in judgment or an overestimation. It was a signal that something far more dangerous was emerging in the galaxy, something that could no longer be ignored. The first transmission from the Council came as a coded message to Dr. Kian and her team, instructing them to return to Earth immediately with a new directive: gather more intelligence on humanity's potential to dominate or destabilize galactic peace. There was growing consensus among the Council's more conservative factions, those who had initially dismissed Earth as insignificant, that humanity had the capacity to rise far beyond their current limitations. The Council could not afford to underestimate the species any longer. As Dr. Kian prepared for the journey back to Earth, she began to think about the implications of the situation. She had always believed in peaceful resolutions, in the idea that galactic civilizations could coexist without conflict. But there was something uniquely dangerous about humanity. It wasn't just their ability to endure, it was their unpredictability. Humanity had the uncanny ability to turn their greatest failures into triumphs. And with the speed at which they were progressing, there was a genuine possibility that Earth could one day challenge the most powerful empires in the galaxy. But Dr. Kian couldn't bring herself to treat humanity as a threat just yet. The humans she had observed were not unlike her own species in their pursuit of knowledge and advancement. They had their flaws: wars, destruction, chaos. But they also possessed something else that set them apart: the ability to adapt quickly, to innovate when faced with adversity. It was this quality that made Earth so dangerous, and yet so intriguing. Upon returning to Earth, Dr. Kian's team began to deploy more advanced surveillance techniques. They had learned that humanity's technological capabilities were growing faster than expected. They had already discovered that humans had begun to experiment with space travel, sending probes beyond their planet's orbit, and even testing spacecraft in the atmosphere. Despite the primitive nature of their technology compared to the galaxy's great empires, humans were showing a remarkable ability to overcome the limitations of their own planet. The Council's most recent instructions were clear. They needed more information on how Earth's inhabitants viewed the galaxy. What did they know of the greater universe? How much of a threat did they perceive themselves to be? This information would be crucial in determining how to deal with Earth moving forward. If humanity saw themselves as part of a larger intergalactic community, it might be possible to form alliances, to shape their future into something more cooperative. But if they saw the galaxy as a hostile force, then Earth's trajectory could lead to inevitable conflict. To this end, Dr. Kian and her team began to observe Earth's leaders more closely. They monitored global communications, intercepted encrypted messages, and infiltrated key governmental bodies. The patterns they uncovered were both disturbing and fascinating. While humans were divided on many issues, their collective drive to expand their influence was undeniable. Humanity was rapidly accelerating in its pursuit of knowledge, learning about space, developing new forms of energy, and experimenting with technologies that could alter the fabric of the universe itself. But one thing was clear: humans were not content with simply surviving. They wanted more. They wanted to explore the stars, to conquer the unknown, to push the boundaries of their existence. The idea of a peaceful coexistence with other species was not even on their radar. Not yet. Humanity's relentless quest for dominance, fueled by their history of wars and conquests, made it clear that they viewed the galaxy not as a place for peaceful coexistence, but as a challenge to be overcome. As the team continued their covert investigation, Dr. Kian found herself grappling with a growing sense of unease. The humans were dangerous, but not in the way the Council had originally assumed. They weren't just a war-hungry species with primitive technology. They were a species on the verge of something far more profound. Humanity was capable of creating new worlds, shaping their environment to suit their needs, and even overcoming the natural limits of their planet. They were on the brink of mastering space travel, and once they did, there would be no stopping them. Dr. Kian couldn't shake the thought: if Earth continued down this path, There would be no way to contain them. She knew that she couldn't keep the truth from the Council any longer. The humans were already too advanced, too unpredictable. They weren't simply surviving. They were evolving at a pace that outstripped the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. The Council's decision to monitor Earth more closely, to treat it as a potential threat, might have been the only thing standing between galactic peace and interstellar conflict. As Dr. Kian's team made their final preparations to return to the Council with their new findings, the galaxy braced itself for the next phase in humanity's journey. The once-ignored planet was no longer a minor player. Earth had redefined the rules of survival, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Would humanity continue to rise to the challenge, or would it become the galaxy's greatest threat? The Council had no answers. All they knew was that Earth had changed everything. And now, the galaxy would have to decide how to respond to this newly empowered species. The future of intergalactic peace rested in the hands of the humans, and no one knew what they would do next. The Galactic Council's response to Earth's rising status was swift but uncertain. Even though Dr. Kian's team had delivered a chilling report detailing humanity's remarkable resilience and rapid advancement, the Council's leaders found themselves paralyzed. The Council had seen empires rise and fall, planets torn apart by conflict, and species extinguished by the ravages of time. But they had never encountered a species quite like humanity. Their potential was undeniable, but their unpredictability was what truly made them a wild card. The Council convened an emergency summit to discuss their next move, one that would determine how they would engage with Earth and its people. Representatives from each of the major galactic powers gathered in a massive, translucent chamber, an architectural marvel that hovered high above the core worlds. The chamber was neutral ground, chosen to prevent any one species from exerting dominance during the deliberations. In this space, the future of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy, would be decided. The first to speak was Supreme Regent Lothar, the leader of the Zorvani Dominion. With his towering figure and voice that echoed across the room, he was known for his calculated decisions and his unwavering belief in the preservation of order above all else. He was one of the Council members who had initially argued that Earth posed no threat, but after reviewing Dr. Kian's report, his stance had shifted. "We must acknowledge the gravity of the situation," Lothar said, his voice calm but firm. "Earth's emergence as a Class 13 Deathworld is not a mere label. It is a warning. Their rapid technological advances, their history of self-destruction followed by resurgence, these are signs of a species that will not be contained. We cannot afford to ignore them any longer. It is time we take action." His words were met with a murmur of agreement from the Exhilarating and Velrith representatives, two of the most aggressive factions in the galaxy. The Exhilarians, with their militaristic focus and thirst for expansion, saw Earth's emergence as a direct challenge to their own empire's dominance. They were eager to strike first, to keep Earth under control before it could pose a real threat. "I agree," said Genkar, the Exhilarian ambassador. His icy blue eyes flashed with intensity. "The humans have proven time and again that they do not know the meaning of peace. Their history is one of conquest, of war, of bloody battles fought for survival. We cannot allow them to escape their violent nature and grow unchecked. If Earth becomes a power in the galaxy, it will be an uncontrollable force, and that will be a danger to us all." On the other side of the room, the Arxilians remained cautious. Dr. Kian, who had been invited to speak for her species, knew that the Arxilians' position was delicate. Their peaceful philosophy, once seen as a strength, now seemed like a liability in the face of Earth's rapid evolution. "I believe we must proceed with caution." Dr. Kian spoke up, her voice cutting through the rising tension in the room. "We cannot judge Earth solely on its past. Yes, their history is full of war, but that does not mean they are doomed to repeat it forever. The humans have shown remarkable adaptability. They have survived even the worst conditions imaginable and come out stronger on the other side. If we approach them with understanding, there is a chance for diplomacy. We cannot simply treat them as a threat without knowing them better." Her words were met with some skepticism, especially from the Velrith. They were a race of calculating merchants who valued control above all else, and they had little patience for any species they couldn't predict. They had once tried to ally with Earth, but the humans' unpredictable nature had soured the deal. It was clear that the Velrith did not believe in the possibility of a peaceful future with Earth. "They are unpredictable," said Xylor, the Velrith representative, his voice dripping with disdain. "Every time they take a step forward, they leap backward. If they can't even figure out how to govern themselves without constant infighting, how can we trust them with anything beyond their borders? They cannot be reasoned with." The room fell silent as the weight of Xylor's words hung in the air. Earth's political turmoil and constant conflicts had long been a point of contention among the Council, but Dr. Kian refused to let this undermine her argument. "Yes, their politics are chaotic," she agreed, "but look at what they've accomplished despite that. Despite centuries of internal conflict, they've managed to make incredible advances in science, technology, and exploration. Their ability to unite when it matters is not something to be underestimated. Humanity is not like other species we have encountered. Their flaws are evident, but they also have the potential for greatness. If they can overcome their internal divisions, there's no telling what they might achieve. That's why we need to engage with them now, before they become something we cannot control." There was a moment of silence, and then the council members began to speak among themselves. Opinions were still divided, but there was no denying the sense of urgency that had taken hold of the room. Earth's status was no longer something to be debated. It was a reality that had already changed the balance of power in the galaxy. In the end, a decision was made. Earth would be closely monitored, but the Council would extend an olive branch. The humans would be allowed to continue their progress in space, but they would be watched. Representatives would be sent to Earth, not as conquerors or invaders, but as observers to better understand the species. Humanity would be given a chance to prove itself, whether as an ally or as a threat. The Council would proceed carefully, knowing that a misstep now could mean the difference between peace and galactic war. As Dr. Kian left the chamber, she felt a heavy weight in her heart. The fate of Earth, a planet she had once seen as insignificant, now rested on a knife's edge. Humanity had shown that it could survive against all odds, but would it rise to meet the challenges of the galactic community? Or would it succumb to its own destructive nature? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Earth's place in the galaxy would never be the same again. The decision made by the Galactic Council sent ripples across the galaxy, but it also had profound consequences for Earth. The representatives sent to observe the human race were not just visitors. They were the eyes and ears of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Their presence on Earth would shape the future of humanity in ways no one could predict. Dr. Kian, despite her previous cautious optimism, found herself grappling with doubt. As an Arxilian, her instinct was to seek peaceful resolutions, to encourage cooperation. But she knew the Council's decision had put Earth on a dangerous path. The galaxy's powers had made it clear that Earth's rise would not be tolerated if it threatened the established order. But she also recognized something that the Council had missed. Humans were different. They didn't just endure, they adapted. They didn't just survive, they thrived. As the first wave of ambassadors and emissaries began to arrive on Earth, the planet was on the cusp of a new era. Humanity was beginning to extend its reach beyond its own solar system. A handful of exploratory missions had already ventured into the deeper reaches of space. The Earthlings had made significant strides in developing faster than light travel, and they were eager to learn more about the galaxy around them. But most importantly, they were ready to make their mark. They were not content to remain confined to their small corner of the universe. Humans wanted to stake their claim among the stars. The first interactions between humans and the galactic observers were cautious, to say the least. The humans had no idea they were being watched by such powerful entities. Their governments were still working to unify their fractured world, And though the idea of an intergalactic council was far beyond their comprehension, their ambition was not. They could sense something was happening, but they didn't know what. There was a feeling of both excitement and tension as humans began to realize that their small planet was not alone in the vast universe. The first representative to make contact with Earth was Ambassador Genkar from the Exhilarating Empire. His race was known for its militaristic might, and his presence on Earth was a clear message. Humanity's actions in space would not go unnoticed. He arrived with an entourage of highly trained diplomats and military officers, each one eager to assess humanity's readiness for galactic diplomacy or conflict. The humans were curious but wary, unsure of how to respond to the alien visitors. Genkar's first encounter with a group of human leaders was telling. It was held in a massive conference hall, the lights dimmed to give the appearance of mystery. Humans were shocked by the Exhilarating ambassador's sheer presence, his tall, imposing figure, the gleaming armor that reflected the harsh lights, and the intimidating aura he exuded. His species had a long history of expanding its empire through force, and many feared this was just the beginning of their invasion. However, Genkar was surprisingly diplomatic. He spoke of the history of the galaxy, of the Council's mission to maintain peace, and of the need for cooperation among the stars. He made it clear that Earth's growing technological might had been noted. His words were measured, but there was an undeniable air of superiority in his tone. To the Exhilarians, Earth was still a child, an unpredictable, dangerous child that needed to be carefully watched. But despite the warning in his words, Genkar offered a hand of peace, though it was a peace built on control. Earth would be allowed to continue its exploration of space, but under the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council. Humanity could join the greater galactic community, but first they would need to prove they could coexist without disrupting the delicate balance of power. The Council wanted to ensure that Earth's thirst for expansion wouldn't spiral into reckless aggression. The meeting left a bitter taste in the mouths of many human leaders. They had heard Genkar's words, but they understood the implications. To them, the invitation to join the galactic community was nothing more than a thinly veiled ultimatum. Humans would have to prove themselves worthy of respect, worthy of the chance to shape their future among the stars. But at what cost? Would they be allowed to chart their own course, or would they be forced to bend to the will of the more powerful empires that had ruled the galaxy for centuries? As days turned into weeks, the presence of the galactic ambassadors on Earth became more pronounced. Observers were placed in key positions across major human governments, monitoring every move, every decision. Humanity's leaders were now under the watchful eye of an intergalactic council that was prepared to take action at the slightest provocation. Dr. Kian, who had initially seen potential for peaceful cooperation, now feared that Earth's survival might depend on its ability to navigate the precarious situation it found itself in. Yet, amid the uncertainty, something unexpected began to happen. Earth's global tensions, though still present, started to shift. The realization that the galaxy was watching sparked a sense of unity among humanity. People began to come together, transcending the divisions of race, culture, and nation. They were no longer just Earthlings. They were humanity, a species on the brink of something far greater than their planet's past struggles. The human resolve began to show. Despite the overwhelming power of the Council, Earth's leaders began to assert themselves. Diplomats, scientists, and military strategists started crafting responses that would allow Earth to maintain its autonomy, while also establishing a place among the stars. Humanity was no longer reacting to the galaxy's expectations. They were taking control of their destiny. Dr. Kian watched as Earth's new leaders began to strategize. They were clever, shrewd, even. They knew how to leverage their most powerful asset, their adaptability. Humans were quick learners, able to understand complex technologies and philosophies that would take most species millennia to grasp. They were not just fighting for survival now. They were fighting for respect on an intergalactic scale. The question now remained, could Earth truly break free from the Galactic Council's grip? Could they forge their own future in the stars without being shackled by the past? Dr. Kean wasn't sure, but as she observed the humans' steady rise, she felt a sense of awe. Whether they succeeded or failed, humanity had already made its mark on the galaxy. And no matter what happened next, the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. In the end, the fate of Earth would be decided not by the Council or by the observers, but by the humans themselves. Would they fight to protect their newfound place in the cosmos? Would they strive for peace, or would they seek dominance, determined to carve out their own empire among the stars? The future was uncertain, but one thing was for sure. Humanity's rise had shattered the galaxy's status quo, and nothing would ever be the same.